Welcome back to the channel. We are only a few days away from introducing a new class, which is Tempest. No wonder then that there is so much hype around this event. This will certainly attract new and returning players. But apart from introducing a new class to Immortal, should we expect more changes in the game? I strongly believe so, and someone has to address it. To properly present the genealogy of the problem, you need to go back in time to the year 22, the beginning of Immortal. Immediately after its introduction, Immortal was very successful. We could say it was its golden era. Huge player base, huge activity. The game was simply on fire. It didn't take long for players to start noticing how aggressive the pay-to-win system was. Many people also believed that they couldn't do anything without paying, which was partially true, but more on that later. For many, the fact that they would not be competitive if they did not invest real money was a red flag. It quickly became a trend on YouTube. All the great creators made obvious videos about how pay-to-win Immortal was, that everyone are quitting the game, and in general, that it is not worth time waste. So the first Immortal's downfall was inevitable. But we should not blame the content creators. They simply jumped on the trend train. It generated a lot of views. So making a video about such an obvious thing as pay-to-win in Immortal was simply an easy solution. And even though many of these videos were highly exaggerated, the developers gave them reasons for that. As a result, we had very bad advertising for Immortal from the very beginning. Was this a lesson for developers, and are there any conclusions? Honestly, at that moment I don't think so. It should be noted that where there is demand, there is also supply. And despite the massive outflow of players, Immortal still made huge profits in its first year. People have spent massive amount of money on this game, so Immortal just makes it possible whether it is ethical or not. Apart from microtransactions, and without unnecessary sugar coating, it must be admitted that Immortal is one of the best titles, especially when considering mobile platform. So if you accept the fact that you will not be the #1 player on the server, then you can play quite successfully without spending money. Or at least that's what everyone thought. Here we should move on to the next year, and Immortal was supposed to get better. The year 23, new class the Blood Knight announced. Of course, the announcement of a new class in Immortal was quite an event. Many players returned to the game, many new ones started playing, and the activity rates increased significantly. At this point, developers seemed to understand that they have to increase the capabilities of regular players, and it must be said that as a result, the daily cap for regular gems has been increased, as well as more opportunities to obtain the legendary crest. Unfortunately, only from many events in the game. Therefore, they still had full control over the rewards. Simply, players' effort and time spent in the game were not sufficiently rewarded. Despite the hype for the new class, nothing has changed, or the changes were too insignificant for players. Still, it was worth doing only activities that provide long-term development. Everything else is rather irrelevant. Unfortunately, the new class wasn't able to keep new players in the game. So once players get used to the new class, Immortal recorded another player-based downfall. But it is worth noting that the introduction of a new character generates a lot of interest. So there's no better time to reach out to regular players. You probably already know why I'm mentioning this. We're just before the introduction of Tempest, so it is the same situation, just like 1 year ago. And of course, I don't want to kill the hype here. I'm very curious about the new class myself. However, the state of the game at the moment is, in my opinion, at least not very optimistic. Starting from the beginning of this year, introduction of Terror Rifts, very poorly received by community update. Despite a lot of feedback on this topic, we did not receive any response from the developers, whether there are any plans or not. I think the community would appreciate an official statement regarding plans for the future of this activity. The same as leaving old activities unchanged, even though they no longer make any sense. However, we still receive updates regularly, but it is worth mentioning that the quality of these updates is not what it used to be. Currently, we have a lot of unfixed bugs in the game, and the developers' response is rather slow. The only thing that justifies them is the upcoming anniversary update, so it's possible they're focused on something else. On the other hand, a developer of this rank should have enough people to deal everything at the same time. In fact, people wait a very long time for simple bugs to be fixed, and new ones keep appearing. So it looks like there is a serious human resources problem. But what really is the main reason why players leave? From what I could observe, after a while the game becomes not rewarding. We are reaching a point where increasing anything for our character costs either huge amounts of money or time. So people refuse to invest in these two things, and their character progression stops. If there is no progress, there is no further interest either. In my opinion, this is the most important thing that Immortal developers should consider. And of course, whales are easy targets to increase revenues, but there are definitely more ordinary players who spend money on Battle Pass. If they would create an efficient environment for the development of ordinary players, then the player base was much higher. Of course, a larger player base means more revenue. And even completely free-to-play players are very necessary because they create a community which keeps Immortal alive, paradoxically. And I'm not talking about adding one legendary crest for half a year as a reward. If I were to encourage people to play, then I would add crests and pearls to regular drop. I think the chance to get it just by playing would go a long way in encouraging people to play and keep trying. Players would feel that the game rewards them, and time is as valuable as money or even more. At first glance, implementing something like this may seem impossible since the entire gem system is based on earning money. But it must be said straight, advanced players no longer see any interest in spending money on gems, or at least not as much as they used to. And on top of that, since the beginning of the game, so many new variants of legendary gems have been introduced that basically crustas have lost most of their value. Getting the right legendary gem on the Rift now is nearly impossible. Therefore, Introducing at least a small chance for a random drop of legendary crests or termalic pearls would be a step towards regular players, and the upcoming events are the perfect time to strongly consider such solutions. Otherwise, the new wave of players that will come for Tempest may disappear as quickly as it was in the case of Blood Knight. And not much has changed since then. Players will be able to notice it quickly. I didn't even mention regular Gems cap. It should have been increased long ago, and daily limits converted to weekly so players can choose when they want to play. With all that being said, I'm afraid that introducing further limits on various activities is only pushing people away from this game, and the direction that developers have chosen so far should be reconsidered. Of course, this is just my opinion. It is possible that what I am talking about will never happen, and developers will keep coming up with new activities that will only cause delusional progress. But as far as I noticed, it doesn't provide expected results anymore. Overall, time will show, but as always, thanks for watching.